She would say otherwise.
So that is the voice of Tim Ringgold that you guys hear. So he's going to be coming and talking about the music that can, how music can heal the mind. And before we get Tim to come and join us, I just want to share a little bit about Tim's work and some of the really powerful motivation that this guy is providing on the planet.
Everything he shared was so on point, so direct. You don't want to miss this experience.
All right, now, mind the gap. Ready?
It's inspirational. It's something that I would encourage people to bring their family members, their friends, their coworkers.
The thing I want to leave you with. Pause, reflect, choose. It'll change any game you're playing.
Weeks after the conference was over, students all around would be talking about how amazing and motivational Tim's session was.
We got these eggs and I wasn't really sure what they were for at first, and then that being introduced that they're about rhythm and it's about using music therapy and rhythm to calm us. I thought that was really neat and as a way that we can actually participate in something rather than just sitting back and passively listening.
You know, I felt like I was in a Tony Robbins seminar. Here's a vehicle, here's something we can really use to help people. Music is the connection.
As a board-certified music therapist, I get to administer music as medicine. When the meds fail, the docs prescribe music.
The audience laughed, they had fun, they learned a lot. He is a master of being able to just move an audience in the direction that you want them to go as a meeting planner.
When we feel in rhythm, we feel connected.
You know, I would say that Tim would blow me away in terms of stage presence and just all around being just a powerful presenter. He just is really, really an incredible speaker.
You have to book Tim Ringgold. What he says, how he says it, will change your life.
Today, after hearing this beautiful message from Tim about the music, you know, and to look at it like music is a friend, I definitely feel lifted up and it's given me hope.
Anyone should go see him, see his work, watch him speak on it. It's fantastic.
Now, it's your turn. Are you ready?
Whoa, whoa. That is amazing, my friend.
Thank you.
I don't know. Apparently you have to be bald to be really motivating in the recovery space.
It's a thing.
You and Jesse, some of the most motivating guys I've met, man. It's really amazing.
We're much more aerodynamic that way. So cut through it all.
There's no resistance, right?
No resistance. It's all internal. Let me tell you, that's where the resistance is.
So let me introduce you guys to Tim Ringgold. So Tim's a board certified music therapist, columnist, author, and host of the podcast Reduce Your Stress. He has provided music therapy to thousands of teens and adults to help them lower anxiety and reduce pain. Tim is an award-winning international speaker, having shared the stage with some of the top minds in music, the brain, the personal development, including Tony Robbins. Tim was the first person to give a TEDx talk on music therapy in 2012. Wow. And Tim is also a former regional president of the American Music Therapy Association. So welcome to the Recovering Me Virtual Summit, Tim Ringgold.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Nathan. It's great to be here.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming. And, you know, similar to what I was saying with Lucius, thank you so much for being part of this process, man. The wisdom that you shared with me on the short call that we had, you know, leading up to this event really gave me so much access to being able to put this thing together. And It's just such a testament to mentorship and coaching, because God knows what this thing would have looked like if without your wisdom. So I appreciate that.
Happy to pay it forward. I hosted my first summit in July, hosting my second one in January, and would not have done it without, you know, the support of others along the way. You know, Tommy Rosen sat down for 2 hours, 2 different Zoom calls, and just walked me through everything for my first summit. And I was just like so grateful, because it just kind of, it's like what is 3D? I'm used to 2D. How does depth work? It's like a whole different dimension, when you're trying to host one of these.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to get to pay it forward, so quickly.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for those of you that don't know Tommy Rosen, he runs a group called Recovery 2.0 that was really, really instrumental in my early recovery. His podcast was like, I remember being in India, and actually I was with my wife's family. They're from India, and we were headed up the mountains in Shimla, up the Himalayas. And I was really in like one of those agitated states. And I just put on Tommy's podcasts, the recovery 2.0, and just listen to talk after talk, and it was such a didn't just relieve the stress, but it just gave me access to this whole other world of recovery. So it's an amazing mentor you have.
I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit of a brief background about you and music and addiction.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Tim Ringgold. And my journey starts on stage when I'm 4 years old. I sang my first solo. And, in the old elementary schools, you'd walk up on the stage, and under the stage is where they'd hide the chairs. So the stage was hollow. And when you would walk on the stage, you would hear and feel like a kukum, 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 because of the stage being hollow. It was really a big like bass cabinet for low frequency. And so right away, I learned when I'd walk on stage, the stage would feel and sound a certain way. And I felt at home. That was 44 years ago. Wow. And so for me, now I have to walk into my room and in my office here in the garage, and I have to like tap on my IKEA desk to try to create this like hollow sound, like maybe I'll kick it with my feet. Hold on, there we go. I got it now, because there's no stages for the foreseeable future. But my story starts out just being, I have to own the fact that I love being the star. I'm an athlete and an artist. I'm an entertainer. And so that just became a very fundamental part of who I am. And I also was raised really strong Catholic. And by the time I was 8, it was pretty much laid out to me, it is not going to work out. There are too many sins, too many ways to sin, and there's a scorecard and someone's keeping score. At least I want to be responsible. This is my interpretation, right? As an 8-year-old, the way it was taught to me. So I used to cry myself to sleep at night because I was afraid that it had already been a foregone conclusion that I was going to go to hell. And so imagine if you have kids, or if you've been around kids, imagine an 8-year-old boy crying himself to sleep every night.
Yeah.
That was what I called spiritual trauma. And it took like probably 14 years of recovery to reach that moment of insight. So the seeds of my fear and disconnection and terror began in my own room as an 8-year-old boy. And when I was about 13, I discovered a certain appendage on my body that was responsible for a mad amount of pleasure. And it was the first time I had ever not felt terror in bed in memory. And I would say to myself, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but it feels so good. And I was so confused. And so the seeds of my sex addiction began as a scared boy trying to find an escape from that terror. And I found it through my body, and I found it through pornographic images. And that was like my binky. That was what gave me comfort. And, that's how it started. Now, so the musician is running now, the addict is running now, and my emotional maturity, pretty much stopped right at that point. And fast forward to, I'm 22, and music, by the time I'm 16, I'm singing for the Pope in St. Peter's Square. I'm having these mountaintop experiences with music, but it's not till I'm 22 that I hit like what I would call rock bottom in my life, where my 5 best friends were murdered. And it was the night before the Oklahoma City bombing. If you all remember back to 1995, if you're old enough to remember, You probably remember that story. Well, I turned on the TV, and on the 3 major news stations, there was the federal building, and on the local channel, it was my best friend's house burned to the ground, and they were pulling body bags out. And I went to 5 funerals in 4 days. And so what those days looked like was I would get up, I would bury a friend, I'd get as hammered as possible, pass out, and then wake up and have to do the whole thing over again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. The night of the last funeral, one of my remaining friends was like, hey, you want to go see some music? And I was like, pardon my French, fuck yes. And I was exhausted, right? And we went to see a show. And for the first 2 hours since I had gotten the news, I found peace. And during that week, no amount of drugs, alcohol, porn, food, and I stacked them all. Talk about habit stacking. Stacked them all. None of it worked. But the music did. The music did. So basically, from that moment in 1995, I kind of dedicated my life to helping others reach for music in their toughest times, because I saw what it did for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That's a very powerful, I mean, that's obviously, it's very sad, but it's a very powerful testament to the power of music.
Yeah.
So in terms of, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in terms of how does that work, right? So how does music like work with the brain, and how is that relevant to the recovery process?
Yeah. Well, we all know music's good for our mood. We all know it's good for our spirit. We've all had, I've never introduced anybody to music. So I have an unfair advantage as a clinician. I'm just like, here's this thing you've never heard of, said no music therapist ever. And but what's really interesting is my job as a clinician was really to understand like the neuroscience of music, and the stress response and the relaxation response, and understand the intersection and how music plays a part in that. And so what I've become an expert in is understanding the role music plays on the brain and the body, which is pretty cool because we all already have this great relationship with this thing. So then knowing this deeper knowledge about what it does for our bodies kind of moves music into a medical context, which is exciting because it's very validating to the experience we've already had. Because we've all been moved by music from point A to point B. You guys know this, everybody on here that hears my voice. You were in a state, and then a song came on. And then before that song was over, your state changed. Yeah. True? Now, P.S., if I'm on gallery view right now, a little ADD moment, but I'm on gallery view. If you are in this meeting right now and you are comfortable coming on camera, it would mean a lot to me so I could see your faces. If you're not comfortable, totally cool, no problem. You may be driving or whatever. But if you're comfortable just turning on your camera, I have a very fragile ego and I like to tell a lot of jokes. And only way I know my jokes land in Zoom land is if your camera is on and I see your face, like, thank you, Lucius, you've totally hooked me up for the first 10 minutes of this. I'm like, yes, Lucius is feeling me. He's feeling me. I can see Jesse's face. He's feeling me. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that very much, brother. Like I said, if you're comfortable, come on camera. If you're not, no problem. But it does help this little guy's fragile ego because I'm in my garage sitting in front of some IKEA curtains, ladies and gentlemen. It's very cool, very quiet in here. And my family's waiting for me to get off here so we can go buy a Christmas tree. They're like, come on. And I'm like, stop it. I've got some work to do. So, all right, ADD moment aside, let me tell you real quick. Here's how it works. Your brain is wired to receive and process music across the entire brain. It is the most complex stimulus in nature, meaning that it requires every subregion in the brain to all work in concert together in order to process a music signal. Why that's really useful is that consider it like it's just heavy lifting for the brain. You cannot focus and attend with the attention part of your brain. You cannot focus on something at the same time in the same way and be attending to music at the same time in the same way, because the attention center of your brain is a single operating system, and we move from a single attention focus to another single attention focus, right? So what music does is it literally makes it very challenging for the brain to think about anything else when it's on music, because the signal is literally lighting up the entire brain, and the whole brain's having to put the piece of music together, pull it apart, compare it against past versions, predict where it's going to go, which is why, to come in on the chorus. If you're at a concert and the guitar solo is playing away, you're like, oh, this is the climax of the solo. This is where I come back in and go, la. And then the guitarist takes an extra solo. And you're like, la, and they keep going because it's live. And you're like, yeah, and you high five your buddy next to you because you totally got it wrong, because you were comparing past versions of the song to predict where the song was going. All of this to say that our focus completely, we go inside the music. Now, not just that, man, our brain releases 3 very important chemicals when we listen to the music we enjoy or we make it. So the first one is dopamine, which is associated with reward and motivation. Basically, it's the, ooh, let's do that again button. So that's an easy way to think about that. Now, for us addicts, that system got hijacked by the behavior or drug of choice. And what's really important, that's a big struggle, is this kind of pleasure anhedonia, that's redundant, this anhedonia we experience early on in recovery where we don't really feel any pleasure, because that system is tapped out, bone dry. And that calibration of understanding what the normal, natural beauty and joy on a daily basis, what that's like, we have to kind of recalibrate. So it's really critical that people in early recovery are understanding that they can reach for music and have a pleasure response inside the music that can be appropriate. It can also be contraindicated, though. So here's something I want to bring up for everybody. The music you listened to when you were partying, whatever your party playlist was, there's a neuro association currently inside your head between the music, the memory, the emotions, behavior. It's all linked. Okay. And so what has to happen is this atrophy has to occur, because our brains are plastic. Maybe someone's brought this up already. So nerves that fire together wire together, and nerves that don't fire together eventually prune, shrink, and break. So those associations we have with certain songs will change over time, but they can trigger cravings just by listening to the song. And there's a great story by Mark Gold, who's a doctor, an addiction medicine specialist. And he was doing research on the brain and cravings. And there was a guy that they were researching, and every time, so his brain's all hooked up to measure cravings, and they're playing Clapton's Cocaine in the clinic. Like, you can't make this stuff up, you guys. They're literally playing cocaine in the clinic while they're, and that wasn't even the purpose of the study. But every time they got to the chorus, come on now, she don't like, she don't like, she don't like. Right? That little cocaine, like ding, lights, brain would light up. And they were like, stop it, look at this. And they realized that there's this very deep connection in the brain between the music we listen to and the responses that it elicits. So if you're early on in recovery, take a little break from your party playlist. It's okay. You can come back to it. You can check in a year or 2 years, and then you play it and you just notice what's happening in your body. And then if you're having any kind of squirrely response in your body, you'll be like, yep, not ready yet. And there's a universe of music for you to listen to in the meantime. But I have guys in treatment, because I've been working in residential treatment centers for 12 years, and I'll have guys do good work all day. And then at the end of the day, they'll put on their playlist of music they were listening to when they were using, and they're triggering themselves. Yeah. And they don't even realize it. So, music's a powerful tool. So we want to really honor what it can do to our brain and our body. But the flip side is also true. When we make music, it elicits that same response. So our bodies, being a rhythm machine, if you can tap, snap, clap, hum, rap, check, check, 1, 2, sing into the unknown, or even scratch, your body looks at that as a rhythmic experience, as a musical experience. And all you have to do is engage your body with music that you're either listening to in your head or in your earbuds. and it'll pull you. This is one of those great things, Lucius, you'll love this. I see your guitar case back there. It'll pull you into the present moment. Oh, there you go, Jason. Love that. Because when we make music, music's time-based. So it takes place in the present moment when we make it. Mindfulness becomes a byproduct of music making. So it's a very powerful tool that we can use to help us stay present so that we don't have to worry about anxiety or depression, because that's past and future, like stuck. Anxiety stuck in the future, depression stuck in the past. No control in either situation, because there's the only place we have any perception of control is in our body, and the only place our body is in the present moment.
Wow, that's amazing. That's why I wanted to have you on, man. It's like I've not been exposed to this type of information before. So that's like super powerful, and what amazing advice for people to beware when they're early on in recovery, for sure, because I know everyone's had that experience, whether it's triggering an addiction or thinking about an old boyfriend or girlfriend, or one of those moments. That's so powerful what you're saying. So what then is, so you're a board certified music therapist, right? Yes. So like in that context, what is music therapy?
Yeah. So if the easy analogy is to think, most people have been exposed to physical therapy or a physical therapist.
Yeah.
So a physical therapist takes exercise and points it at a problem. Right? Now it's a problem, right? It's not a goal in terms of like, I want to get beach muscles. Like you can go to the gym and work out with a trainer, or you can exercise on your own and you don't need a physical therapist, right? But there are certain times when you have an injury or a condition and you really need a very targeted, very safe use, application of exercise. Like it's prescribed, right? So, I've had physical therapy. It's very specific. If you've had physical therapy, it's super specific use of exercise. Music therapy is exactly the same thing. So it's the targeted use of music, or the elements of music, that we point at a problem. And we follow a similar track. Like you get your bachelor's, you do 1,200 hours of clinical internship, you sit for a national board certification exam, you do 100 CEUs every 5 years to maintain that board certification. So we are a allied health clinician. There's only about 8,000 of us in the United States. So we're tiny as a field, which is why you probably haven't run into one before you met me. Often the case is, more often than not, I'm the first music therapist someone's met. And so when I first got on LinkedIn after I graduated school, I put my title was Ambassador of Music Therapy, because I kept being the first person anyone had ever met. Like, you're the first music therapist I've ever met. And I was like, I better not screw this up.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so incredible, because now that when you think about it, like music has been something that's been used since we've been around, right? Whether people are beating on logs or finding little hollow things to blow through or whatever, it's something that is for sure hardwired exactly in our brains.
Totally. And all cultures, all known cultures have a record of music making. All moms sing to their babies in all cultures. Now here's one that's great. All moms sing in the same stepwise melody worldwide. Wow. They all sing the same style. Like the lullaby is cross-cultural. And I think that's really fascinating because culture is can be such a dividing point in the human experience. And music is cross-cultural, and lullaby is cross-cultural. And the thing is, like, kids don't have language. That's why they don't freak out over the lullaby lyrics. Because if you're a parent, you've gone through this where you actually had to learn the lullaby and you read the lyrics and you're like, this is terrible. Who says this to a kid? And the answer is every parent, because no kid knows what their parent is saying. All that's happening is they're hearing la, 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 la. And that lilting stepwise motion of the melody and the timbre of mom's voice, which is just the color, the quality of her voice. That's what the child is leaning into and connecting with. Luckily, not the lyrics.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's a universal thing. It really is. I mean, you know, I hate hyperbole, but it really is a universal language among humanity. And humans, like being human, it's a shared experience to be a human being. As mammals, we're social animals. So we live in connection, in community from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And so having bridges to connection is vital for humans. So one of the things, like evolutionarily, that music's provided as a bridge is two things. One is connection through language. It's considered like a proto language, like a pre-language. We can communicate through music. We can communicate all kinds of things. And there's a great book, if you guys haven't read it, it's called The World in 6 Songs. And it's by Dr. and Professor Daniel Levitin. And it talks about the utility of music throughout human history and how we write like these 6 different types of songs cross-culturally to help us manage being human.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fundamental part of the human experience is being musical. And because we are mammals, bum, 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 which means that we are always in connection. And one of the bridges to connection is music. So it's what you would consider social glue.
Mm.
Because if you think back through your life, music was there at all the major events. It's something that marks rites of passage. It marks, you know, occasions, rituals, right? And then when we come together and celebrate or mourn, music is a fundamental part of that experience. And so when we engage in music, particularly rhythmic music with our body, when we move our bodies in rhythm together, it creates empathy. Now, the research they did behind this is fascinating. They did this with infants where they would bounce infants in like the little papoose thing, right? And they'd have a cohort of kids that they'd bounce for like a couple minutes. And then the researcher would drop like some pencils and be like, oh no, I dropped these. And then they had a cohort of kids where they had them in the papoose, but they didn't bounce. Drop the pencils. The cohort where they bounced together and moved together rhythmically first, the kids would reach out and attempt to help pick up the pencils. And so the movement, the rhythmic movement in unison together created empathy between the two human beings. And in our world, we call that rhythmic entrainment, where the two of us, we become in sync. And our bodies are actually wired to do that. So if we can, whenever we're making or listening to music, if we can engage our body and engage in the rhythm, it becomes a transformative, transcendental experience for us, particularly when we do it with others. And one of those key chemicals I was telling you about is called oxytocin. And it's the chemical that's released that gives us the sense of being connected. And when we make music together and we move together rhythmically, our brains release oxytocin, which is a powerful antidote to the disconnection of addiction. Because as Johann Hari says in his famous TED Talk, the opposite of addiction is connection. I got that right.
Yes.
So anything that facilitates connection is a tool we want to use in our recovery journey. And just like everyone else has talked about, it's really about stacking your toolkit, right? Like filling your bag with lots of different tools. Because at this particular moment, you either won't have the willingness or you won't have the ability to do tool A. So you need tool B. And then in the next moment, you will have neither the ability nor the willingness to use tool B or A, and you need C, and down the line you go, right? And so you want to have an abundance of tools that you don't need until you need them. And music fits in that category when used correctly.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. You actually answered a couple of the other questions that I had in there. Because when you were talking, I thought of Yoel Hari's book, The Lost Connections, and how powerfully he articulates this idea of, you know, addiction being a loss of connection, and how loss of connection is really what really precipitates a lot of the behavior. And and I was just thinking, like, one of the things that have been reported right now, more than any other time in history, has been increased levels of anxiety, increased levels of depression, more feelings of disconnection. And actually, he says in his book that recently they've asked adult humans how many close friends they report having in their life, and the average answer was 0.
The statistics are so alarming. They're literally like unbelievable. Particularly for men from 45 to like 60, the incidence of male friends and maintaining male friendships is so low that the number is actually 0. And I remember telling that to somebody one day after hearing it on a podcast, and they literally could not hear. They're like, that's impossible. And I was like, no, that's how bad it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jesse just said there's a pandemic of isolation, you know? And that's it's so powerfully said. And that's really what I just felt so called actually to have this conversation with all of you guys, because I know that there are people out there, whether they self-identify as someone who's in addiction or not, these conversations need to be had, because part of the problem is no one is talking about the fact that people are lonely and the impact that that's having.
Yeah. So let me just say that one of the beauties of music is you can connect with music while you're alone in your bedroom. And that's why teens are alone in their bedroom with their music and not down in the living room with their with their parents, because the music isn't scolding them. It's not judging them. And it's not taking it personally based on whatever the kid's feeling. Right. So the kid feels more connected in their bedroom by themselves than they do in a room full of people, because the music accepts them exactly where they are. If you try to sing along with your favorite track, it doesn't stop if you wreck the lyrics. It doesn't stop if you sing off key or you can't keep the beat. So Jesse, you should start playing that drum to some recorded music, because it won't stop if you can't keep the beat. I'm totally calling him out. Look at that shame on his face. He's like, oh, he's got me. So yeah. So like if you have a musical instrument in addition to your body, let it rip on that instrument with recorded music, because the music doesn't care. It accepts you exactly where you're at. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't call 911 because you're listening to a song about ending it all. It just is like, this is how I feel in the moment. And now at least I feel connected to something. And here's the story where it all was real for me. I was at a keg party with my heavy metal band way back in the day. And this kid walks up to me, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And he's like, hey, bro. And I was like, whoa, you got big. Glad I wasn't a jerk to you when you were little. And he was like, well, I just want to say you saved my life, bro. And I was like, okay. And he's like, no, man, I got hooked on meth. And I got really depressed as a result of being hooked on meth. That's why I haven't been around for 2 years. And at one point, it got so low, I became suicidal. And one particular night, I was in my bedroom and I was going to do it. It was the night I was going to pull the trigger. And he said, and then your CD came on my 6-disc changer, which totally dates this story. But the point is, he said, in that moment, I thought of you and my singer Eddie. And he goes, and I just thought of how sad you guys would be if I did it. So I didn't. And I haven't gotten that low since. So you want to think about, what is it that keeps a teenager who's feeling depression, suffering from addiction, from killing themselves? It wasn't the music. It was the connection. It was the connection that the music facilitated. He felt connected to me and Eddie. That's what kept him going. And the music was the bridge. That's why when you go into a YouTube video and you see people saying this song kept me alive, it's because the person felt connected to the song. Like, you guys know, everybody listening to my voice right now, you've listened to a song where that was your story, like those lyrics, someone sang your story in their lyrics. And in that moment, you did not feel alone. You felt connected. And spiritually, that's like the number one breaking point is, am I alone or am I connected? Trauma connection, right? So like the isolation connection. And I remember I was going to give a talk one year, and the night before, I'd just redone my slides. I was all proud of them. And I'm in my hotel room, and the man upstairs says, you only need one slide for tomorrow. And I'm like, do you know how much time I spent on these slides? What are you talking about? Okay, smarty, what slide is that? He goes, you only need one slide. And I'm like, all right, well, what do you put on it? And he said the word connection. He's like, you can just talk about that one slide and that'll be what everybody really needs.
Mm.
And I was like, you're really smart, aren't you? Of course, I used my ego was way too invested in that slide deck. So I used the whole slide deck the next day. I'm a mere mortal, people. Come on. But there was that moment of clarity of like, this is it. If you had to distill the whole game, what is the oxygen for our soul? Connection.
Mm.
Boom.
Yeah. Wow. I don't have anything else to say. So, I mean, I guess inside of that, like, where can people get more like access to what it is that you are doing? Because I imagine you work with companies as well, right? I mean, if just inside of what you're saying, I'm just thinking, my God, this like the universal application of this thing is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So I help like busy working professionals reach for music instead of digital distractions and harmful substances. That's a great deal of my work, doing like group coaching programs and one-on-one coaching with them. I have a podcast called Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I created it essentially for healthcare workers because they're under just an unrelenting amount of stress, and they were before the pandemic. And now it's even more so, but it's really for anybody. So it's designed, I write relaxation music, and then I also interview other experts on stress management. And I have other artists, musicians who write relaxation music. I interview them as well. And there's short podcast episodes that you can listen to in your car on the way to work, so that you show up powerful for those you serve. You can listen to it again on the way home. So it kind of turns off that stress response so that when you're home, you're present.
Mm.
So that's like one of the really important things. A lot of people come home from work and they're physically home, but mentally they're still at work. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things right now is how do we turn work off? So using music to turn off the stress response. Listen, guys, gals, music turns off the stress response in your nervous system faster than any oral medication. It doesn't need to be digested.
Mm.
So it's fast. You know this. You've already had this experience. So it's really, really easy to reach for music. So yeah, that's my work. I'm at Tim Ringgold. It all starts at timringgold.com. And what I want to give everybody here, I want to give you a gift. If it's all right if I just tell them about that now, Nathan, should we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been using a very specific relaxation technique with my clients and patients and for the past 12 years. There's a big misunderstanding around relaxation music, and it's this. How many of you have heard like spa music where it's just like, and it's just like somebody on a keyboard, just like every 5 minutes changing a chord, and it's just like super, right? The nervous system hates this, hates it. What the nervous system wants is a predictable pulse that it can entrain with and slow down to. So part of my training as a music therapist was I would be sent into the intensive care unit with my classical guitar to work with patients who are already in a coma. Like, what could music do to them? Well, check it out. The auditory cortex is still working even when they're in a coma. So I would look at their heartbeat. Well, let me just do this really quickly just to make sure my sound doesn't get weird. I'd look at their heartbeat on the monitor. It would be like tick, 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 tick. And I'd use their heartbeat as a metronome. And I'd play my guitar next to them. And after about 5 minutes, I'd start to slowly slow down the tempo of the guitar. And their autonomic nervous system is still working. And it's basically, our bodies will automatically sync up with an external rhythm nearby as long as it's close. So I could use the guitar to slow down their heart rate, their blood pressure, and their respiratory rhythm, all while they're still in a coma. And the way we knew that is because we would write down all those numbers, since they were all being measured before the musical experience and after, and we'd see boom, boom. Even in a coma, we'd be able to slow down their body. And you know the mind-body connection. If we slow down the body, we slow down the mind. And so it's a wonderful tool. So the relaxation vacation is the tool that I've created that's not based on that spa music that actually is really bad if you've got any trauma in your background. It's based on using this slow tempo of classical guitar to slow down your nervous system while I take you out of the pressure and the stress of the present moment and walk you back to a time in your past that you choose where you felt safe, you felt connected. And I walk you through that experience so that your entire body feels that experience in the present moment. And then you get to bring that state back into the present so you can face the stress of your present being at your best. So if you go to my website, you'll just see my bald head. Now, we're all on screens right now. And a real easy thing to do while we're on screens is just open up timringgold.com. If you want to throw it in the chat, people can click on it. You'll see my bald head. It'll say, reach for music. And then it'll say, would you like to take a relaxation vacation? And you'll say, why, yes, Tim, because I can't take any other kind of vacation right now.
That's right.
And you'll put your name and your email address in with whatever the little code, so you're not a robot. And then you'll check your spam folder and your, promotions folder for an email from me, which will take you out to my website and give you this 15-minute experience. And you'll get my voice with the guitar. You'll get a version of just my guitar, and you'll get a version of just my voice. And the biggest compliment I get is people will download it and they'll say, I fell asleep to your music and I've been really struggling falling asleep. Because some entertainers like to bring their crowds to their feet. I like to put mine to sleep.
It's a powerful thing, my friend. And we actually have one of my sister-in-law, Angie's on the call. She's an ICU nurse, and she said that she misses musicians coming in. So there's a powerful testimonial there.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually recently, when I was preparing for this thing, I went to your Facebook page for some reason. I can't remember why, but I found one of the little live sessions that you do.
Yep.
Just put it on in the background when I was working. It was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every Monday night I go live on Facebook, and what I do with my guitar is I use a loop pedal and I build these just relaxing instrumental guitar pieces that are slow tempo and they're easy on the ears, it's basically like whatever the newest track that I've released on the podcast, I'll play it live on Facebook as well that night. And it all started because when lockdown happened in March, I went on Facebook Live 40 days in a row and played 40 Facebook Lives called Something to Comfort You. And people on the East Coast would fall asleep to the music. People on the West Coast would cook to it. And I was like, this is amazing because I can connect through Facebook and provide this relaxation to people in such a tough time. And then we started, so now I've been recording each one of those lives. I captured all those. Now I'm recording them, releasing them on the pod, and then I play them again live every week just to bring them back. And then in my neighborhood, every Saturday, we have this big cul-de-sac, and me and a couple other musicians set up at the end of the cul-de-sac outside, and our band is called Curb Appeal because we don't play stages, we only play curbs. And I play the relaxation music out there, and we play some other songs, and it's a way for us to gather safely outdoors and get some live music, which we're all starving for right now. So you guys can check it out. Come find me on Facebook and come hang out with me on Monday nights. It's chill.
It's chill. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. There was lots of highs, lows. I can see humor's another thing that is very healing. So thank you for providing that as well.
Oh, totally. My pleasure. And let me just share you guys this little takeaway with humor. One of the things, my wife and I always use humor as a coping skill. And one of the things we really enjoy right now with this pandemic is we say things like, someday we'll look back on this and laugh. So why wait?
That's so true. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much again for not only participating in this, but really, providing me some guidance leading up into this. It's really been amazing. And I think, more than anything else in this whole process, just seeing how many people are out there providing this work from different angles and getting connected in. For the people that are on this call, maybe this is the first time you've met Tim or some of the other speakers, the message is that there's so many different ways to plug in, and I just feel really grateful meeting all of you guys. And I feel like I have a new tribe myself, going through this process. So thank you for what you do. And thanks for your time today.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Great job setting this up. It's a lot of work. Kudos to you for serving the community and putting this together, because that, like, nobody knows like how much work it takes behind the scenes to make this happen. So well done.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.